16 months of isolation, of finding new ways of connection, we begin this moment, this time, by reminding you 3 very important things about yourself. Number 1, you are a beloved expression of God. Number 2, you are here for a holy purpose, a purpose of connecting, a purpose of healing, a purpose of celebrating you and your innate divinity. And finally, you are where you are by divine appointment. You are at the right place, at the right time, right now.
There are days so hard, it seems like nothing's going right. There are nights so cold, you're just praying for the light. There are times when you think that there's no going on. You're convinced that you're not that strong. And just then a day like this comes along. So celebrate your life today. Great and joyful things have come your way. Love with all your heart and soul today. Know that God has There will never be a better day than today to celebrate. Every morning there's reason to feel blessed, 'cause just for you God has set aside the best. You can do whatever you dream of. All you need to do is love yourself, and then you will find you can always rise above and celebrate your life today. Great and joyful things have come your way. Love with all your heart and soul today. Know that God has made you whole. There will never be a better day than today to celebrate. It can take so long to reap what you sow. You can lose your way even when you're sure which way to go. So why wait to appreciate what you have now? You already understand how. You just open your eyes and heart as wide as they'll allow. And celebrate your life today. Great and joyful things have come your way. Love with all your heart and soul today. Know that God has made you whole.
a very special day with Paul today. It's his birthday. It's his birthday. I feel verklempt a little bit too in being here. Thank you for joining us online whenever you're joining us. And thank you for your willingness to join us in person this morning. 16 months is a long time to simply talk to a camera. But what a joy to be able to talk to that camera, to talk to everybody who's been behind that camera for the last 16 months, and to know that we have closed the building for the past 6 months, but we have never closed the church. And I'm going to say that again. We closed the building, but we never closed the church. And why is that? Because we, you and me, are the church. The Bible teaches the church is not a building. Charles Fillmore teaches the church is not a building. Charles Fillmore teaches that it is the heart within each of us. As we turn within to the Spirit within each of us, that is the church. So while we may not have been physically together, we were together in the field of potentiality in every single moment of the last 16 months. I want you to take a breath into that. We were together in the field of potentiality in every single moment of the last 16 months. And why is that? Because our divine nature is one. Take a breath. Our divine nature is one. Whether we're 2,000 miles away, 5,000 miles away, or 6 feet away, or 3 feet away, we are always together in the field. And sometimes it doesn't feel like that, because sometimes in isolation, it can feel very lonely. It can raise fear and doubt. And yet the beauty of it all is that when we remember who we are, when we come back into that knowingness and experience our oneness, all we ever have to do is take a breath. So the church has never closed. Every time any of you reached out to each other, you are being the church. Every single time you gave support to one another, every single time you called someone up, you ran into them in Harris Teeter, if you could recognize them behind the mask, you were being the church. Because the church is not a building. The church is a body of people who come together with like minds, who are celebrating life. There will never be a better day to celebrate than today. And the reason for that is the psalmist says, "This is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it." We can rejoice and be glad in it, no matter what is going on in the world. And why is that? Because when we know who we are, created in the image of and as the likeness of the divine, as we know that, as we experience that, then what we do is be that. It radiates forth from us. We can never be separated from our Creator. It is impossible. We can feel separate, but we can never be separated. So I want you to tune into your heart for just a moment. Just focus on your heart for just a moment. And as you focus on your heart, bring someone to mind that you love beyond a shadow of a doubt. Someone that you care deeply about, and feel their presence in your heart. You may be experiencing a memory, and yet our brains do not know the difference. Let yourself feel the love that you have for somebody as you hold them in your heart. This is community. Unity of Wilmington has been here for over 40 years. We stand in the energy of all who have come before us, and we stand in the energy of all who will come after us. We're able to come together and hold this sacred space together in our hearts, whether we're present in this building or not. And as we move forward, as we call forth that love, as we continue to celebrate who and what we are, as we continue to celebrate this day and every day that comes after this day, because we know that the very essence of life moves in, through, and as us, then we are making a difference. And from this moment on, each time you go to Harris Teeter or Publix or Aldi's or any of those places that you go, know that your energy, what you bring to the situation, what you bring to the moment, what you bring to the experience of being present in those places can be the consciousness of love, if you choose that. It can be the consciousness of togetherness. It can be the consciousness of oneness when you choose that. And then as you choose that, it does two things. One, it heals our own hearts. It brings our hearts into coherence because we are made, we were created to be in connection with each other. And so as our hearts open up, as we bring our loving nature into every interaction, what occurs is that we're an invitation. So as you think about that person one more time that you're holding in your heart that you love beyond the shadow of a doubt, know that you are connected through the field of energy, that there is no separation in the field of energy. And I'm going to ask you to do the harder one. I'm going to ask you to hold in your heart somebody that you really struggle with, somebody that pushes all your buttons, even though you try really hard. This time they're not going to do it. I'm not going to let them get me. Even though you're trying really hard, they still kind of get in there because they know exactly how to do that. Hold that person in your heart for a moment and breathe into your heart space and experience your oneness with them. I don't know anybody who does not have that person in their life. But what I do know is that when we allow who we are, love, the consciousness of love, when we allow the life force energy that is flowing through us in each and every moment to flow, then in oneness we are dissolving. And we are resolving for ourselves. We can't do it for anybody else. But we are dissolving and resolving the contraction that comes when within us when somebody pushes those buttons that we have. And really what we should do is send them a thank you card because they're giving us an opportunity to look at ourselves closely and deeply, to look at ourselves and say, oh, here's a piece of me that could use some healing. Here's a piece of me I had not realized. Oh, I thought I was done with that. I have a lot of those moments. Oh, I thought I was done with that. Oh, I didn't think she was going to get me this time. And she did because I allowed it. But I allowed it because there's something within me that is seeking my wholeness, because something within me, what I call my divine nature, knows beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am whole already. My mind may not be thinking it, but something in my heart knows already that I'm whole, that I am complete. And as we put the last few months behind us, and as we don't know exactly what's going to happen as we step into the next few months, and we live in the consciousness of the unknown, what we can know beyond a shadow of a doubt is that we are whole. What we can know, no matter what is before us, that we are whole, that we have every capacity of God within us in this moment that we will ever need in order to resolve or dissolve, in order to make the decisions we need to make, in order to come from that consciousness of love that we are called to be. Because have you ever had the moment where you felt like when you looked back in retrospect, that you did not like who you had been? Have you ever had those moments? Oh, I wish I had handled that differently. Because our heart, our divine nature knows that we are love. Now, love has boundaries. Love can say yes or no. We're participating in that with our system right now of green, red, and yellow, and respecting the dot that each of us has chosen. And the dot that each of us has chosen is representing something for each of us. We can love each other enough to respect the choices that we're making. And that is a form of love with a spine. You can say no to me, and I can maybe want what I'm asking for greatly, and you can say, no, I don't want to do that. And I can still hold love and respect for you in my heart. And maybe you're going to say yes, and that's going to be more delightful to me. And maybe it will be delightful to you. But when we are willing to find ways to love that transcends our own personal wants and desires, when we want to have something that someone is not wanting to give us, then we can practice the power of love by loving ourselves and giving to ourselves exactly what we're wanting from another person. And we can do that because we have all of the capacities of God within us. And then we can celebrate our wholeness and the other's wholeness. We can celebrate our strength, our spiritual intelligence, and our wisdom. And we can celebrate the other's spiritual intelligence and wisdom. I'm reminded of the story of the prodigal son. You may remember that story. The father has two sons, and one son wants to go out and explore the world. And he does. His father says, yes, of course. Yes, of course. Go and do what you need to do. And it was very difficult on that father because what he really wanted was his son to stay present. So he had both of his sons working with him in the family business. But one wanted to go and experience the world. And the father loved enough to say yes to that desire. And that father knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that there would be a moment that that son would come home. And that father knew that in that moment that that son chose to come home, that the father would be there, waiting, filled with love, respecting the choices and the decisions, and still present in love. And the other son stayed and assisted his father. And can you imagine, if you have brothers or sisters, all of the different thoughts that might have gone through the mind of the son who stayed? Sometimes it's hard to see our brothers or our sisters getting something that we might want, and yet we feel responsible. It's not unlike the Mary Martha story. And yet, if we look at this story metaphysically, the father, or in these current days, it could be a mother, but in biblical days, it was the father. If we think about the Father as symbolic of the Christ within us, the divine within us, whatever word you like to use, don't let the word get in the way. Principle, as we talk about it in unity, loves for the sake of loving. We are principle. We are divine. We can love for the very sake of loving. And that's what spiritual community does. It brings us together to remind ourselves and each other of who and what we are. To remind ourselves that we are whole. To remind ourselves to seek the truth within ourselves. To remind ourselves that no matter where we've been, no matter what we've done, we can come back home to our own heart. And the Christ, the divine, God, the universe, whatever term you wish to use, is waiting for us. With love. No blame, no judgment. With love. Love so infinite that most of us have a hard time wrapping our minds around it because we're not able or have not yet become able to love ourselves that much. And so when someone loves ourselves more than we do, it can be very difficult for us. It can feel lonely. It can feel like something's wrong with us. And yet it's an invitation for each of us to be the church, to be the body of people who are following their nature, which is love. To be a person who's willing to say, no, I don't like what you're doing, and yet I'm willing to see the truth of you in spite of it. I'm willing to know your wholeness even when I don't like your behavior. I'm willing to put the distance so we don't have to interact and create the volcanic, sometimes, feeling of conflict. But I'm willing to be love and to see you as love. That's who we're called to be. And that is what I believe we are called here today to celebrate. That as the body, as the beingness of the church, as the consciousness, not the walls, not the building, but as the consciousness of the church, we are called to celebrate our wholeness, celebrate our lovingness, celebrate our ability to transcend what's appearing, to know that even though we cannot wrap our mind around it, that we are deeply loved, that we are one, and that truly all is well and in divine order. Now, why do we celebrate? We celebrate for a lot of reasons, and these are some of them. Celebrating boosts our well-being. When we celebrate, we feel good together. Didn't it feel wonderful to be walking up the sidewalk? It looks different. This building looks different inside and out. And yet there's a feeling of walking up and walking toward. There's a feeling of coming together again, to see each other in our physical presence. There's a well-being that happens because we are individuals who are unique, and yet we are one. And our nature calls us to connection, heart to heart. Our nature has not yet, for many of us, myself included, come to that place where we can feel that connection across the years, across the months, sometimes even across the weeks of not being in the physical presence of another person. So celebrating boosts our well-beingness. Celebrating cultivates a sense of community. It allows us to come together to deepen our relationships, to share the exciting things that have been happening to us over the last 16 months, to seek to find in each other the mirror of the divine within us. Celebrating allows us to call our attention to this moment and to celebrate this moment, to bring our awareness to this moment and to savor it, to hold in our hearts the joy and the delight of this moment. The early church really began with the Apostle Paul. He began as Saul and was persecuting Christians. You may remember that. And he had this experience on the road to Damascus where he saw this beautiful light. And that light spoke to his heart. And he was forever changed. We are that light for each other. We speak to each other's hearts. And when our hearts open up, we are forever changed. And Paul began to assist the early churches. The early churches began sometimes by a riverside, sometimes in someone's home. The temple, the Jewish temple, was well established, but the people who were following the teachings of the universal teacher Jesus were often persecuted in the early days until Rome decided that Christianity would be the universal religion, and they called it Catholicism, which actually means, Catholic means universal. So in those early days, Paul traveled place to place to place, and this is the basic principle of what he taught. Let the peace of the Christ rule in your hearts, to which indeed you were called in the one body. And be thankful. Let the peace of Christ rule in our hearts. Let the peace of Christ, let the love of the divine be the ruling factor that begins in our heart center and reaches out to each other and sees the beauty and the magnificence of each other that sometimes we have a difficult time in seeing in ourselves. Love is the root of our oneness. The very first book of the Hebrew Scriptures is the book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created. The gospel writer of John says God is love. In the beginning, love created. In the beginning, love created you and me. In the beginning, we began as love. Sometimes that's hard to take in, but that love is at the root of our oneness. That love is why we can continually come home to the Spirit that is within us, that we are the church, that we come home to the Spirit of truth within us, and we are able to see our magnificence. We are able to see beyond something that's appearance out there and know the truth. And it then begins to look like this. The key is not in having no differences, because we are unique, individualized expressions of God. The key is not in having no differences, but having a love that's transcendent enough to adjust to all differences. To have a love that is transcendent enough to adjust to all differences. To be who we are called here to be. You and I are in this room, and each of you who are in this room virtually with us, whenever that is for you, have been called here to this now moment, have been called to be a part of the pathway forward, whatever it looks like over the next few months, over the next few years. And the beauty of that is love is the very foundation of the creative process. And using our spiritual principles, thoughts and feelings held in mind produce thoughts and feelings that are similar to those we've been holding. When we are holding love in our hearts, we are paving the way for love to be the predominant frequency, not the emotion of love, but the very high vibration of love. Calling it forth to be the very frequency that we radiate day to day, moment to moment, which brings us back to this is the day that the Lord, which we can translate law, spiritual law, this is the day that our thoughts and our feelings that we've been holding on our mind can create, and we can rejoice and celebrate it. As we celebrate our lives, as we embrace the differences of each other and transcend to that consciousness of love. Let's bring this into a time of meditation. I'm going to keep my eyes open. You can keep your eyes open or closed, whatever works for you. And I'm going to ask you to just simply begin with a breath. And with that breath, I want you to notice where there's tension in your body. And I want you to use your breath, if you're willing, to move that tension. To let the love that's in your heart surround and infuse that tension. Holding it gently, as you would hold a precious object in the palm of your hand, so that you're loving all of the parts of yourself, the differences within each of us, the differences that come with our fully humanness and our fully divineness, and the way in which we navigate and weave through the world, living as both, so that we eventually are just simply living as who and what we are. Celebrating each day, waking up with joy, feeling the hallelujah that is within us naturally because we were created in love. Finding that place of aliveness within ourselves because we are love. We are loved and we are loving. And as we learn together, supporting, uplifting, inspiring, transforming each other through spiritual community, whether we're ever in this building again or not, but we are part of a greater presence that is powerful and transcendent, that is within us in all moments, that allows for us to live in joy because that's who we are, to celebrate life day by day, moment by moment, to know that in the midst of difficulties or chaos, we can still celebrate, trusting, having that faith that within us is every answer that we need as we tune within and find the spirit of truth in our hearts. And when we hit that point within us, we celebrate. It's hard not to smile, not to experience joy, not to be delightful when we come into that place, because that is our true nature. And in this moment, I invite you to find your hallelujah within you and let it be that which radiates forth from you.
All right. Woo, all right. I've been grinding so long, been trying to get this for years. I got nothing to show, just climbing this rope right here. And if there's a man upstairs, he kept bringing me rain. But I've been sending up prayers and something's changed. I think I finally found my hallelujah. been waiting for this moment. It's good to be alive right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Hallelujah, let that bass line move, yeah, say yeah. Good to be alive right about now. I was dead in the water, nobody wanted me. I was old news, I went cold as cold could be. But I kept throwing on coal, trying to make that fire burn. Sometimes you gotta get scars to get what you deserve. I kept moving on, now I'm moving up. Man, I'm feeling blessed with all this love. I think I finally found my hallelujah. I've been waiting for this moment all my life. Now all my dreams are coming true, yeah. I've been waiting for this moment. Good to be alive right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Hallelujah, let that bass line move, yeah, say yeah. Good to be alive right about now.
Well, thank you so much for your presence here. Thank you for your presence online. We are a spiritual community because of your generosity. We have a basket here. If you're in the room, please know that this basket is to accept your gratitude for our presence as a spiritual community. You can Venmo us, you can hit the donate button, but mostly shout out if you're online and say thank you for Unity of Wilmington. If you are in this room, thank you for the air conditioning. Thank you for the upgrade. And thank you for being you.
And as you celebrate this day, remember that each and every moment that this is the day that your spiritual principle, your spiritual action has created. Create the kind of day that you want to celebrate every single day. And know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that you are whole and loved.
Yes, you are.
Can I handle it? I could get used to this. I almost can't. Can I handle it? I could get used to this. I think I finally found my right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Hallelujah, let that bass line move, yeah, say yeah. Good to be alive right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Good, good, good. Right about now. One more time. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. Good, 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 good to be alive right about now. All right.